we've touched on it briefly about the complexity, the number of applications, legacy, retiring systems, what have you. How important and how are you monitoring your estates and to get that understanding? You're understanding your applications. How do you do it, and how are you helping communicate that to the business?
So you want to find a way in which let's say there's three parts to it. So you need to find a way in which you can bring together the data so you can start to link up what's going on, because otherwise you'll be sent off on false truths. It's very easy to find things that are actually the real problem. So you need a way to bring the data together so you can start to see what's going on and follow the trail to find the right point at which you can start to make a difference. And then you need some way to visualize that, which makes sense as well. So this is, as I said earlier, some people will happily live in that sort of world. They will happily just poke everything and find out where is it slow, what's the problem. And I think you then need some way to to alert on these things, because it's not just a one-off task. Because sometimes it's the problem of phoning your broadband provider and saying, well, the internet wasn't working last night, and they go, well, it is now. Well, that's great. So that hasn't helped me very much at all. And you need a way to find the right. I guess sometimes it's tooling, sometimes it's just process, but finding the right way to look at the problem when it's actually happening. Because some of these sometimes. It's not a constant problem. Some of these things can be very difficult to get to the root cause of. Certain events happen, they only happen at certain times, and then things become slow, and then in the middle of the day it all looks fine. So you need to find the right way to really understand the skill sets around around testing, and there's all levels of testing you need to think about around the way you load test and smoke test, and find the resilience level you're happy with within your system, so it can cope with these different issues, and you feel confident that you can then you can leave it alone and you can go to bed at night, and you're not going to get a phone call at 3 a.m. because it's falling over. Those things can literally keep you awake at night. So you have to find ways to manage those problems.
Yeah, and there's the side of the reactive side and the proactive side. The reactive side is something breaks, and again, with more services moving to cloud and less of that visibility and monitoring, you've got more black spots and trying to, even the meantime between understanding what the actual problem is, because you usually see the symptom, right? So understanding what the real problem is and somehow using a tool set that's relevant to take you right down to the actual cause of that problem. And the time from the start to the end is business, it's dollars, it's impacts directly. And then the real question then becomes, why did it happen? How do we avoid it in future? And to your point, John, if the broadband provider says, hey, it's all fine now, that does not answer your question. We sort of always look at how do we help from a perspective of the reactive mean time to resolution, and then there's the proactive side of how do you use all of that huge amount of data you've got from many, many, many tool sets. We see customers have so many point solutions that don't talk to each other or interact, and then you're getting many different views of what the problem is. So the idea of taking real data, analyzing it in the correct way, and using it to make real decisions, how to avoid problems in future, what systems do we change, what do we avoid, how do we do anything, and then relate that into a workbook of how you fix actual problems. And it's very rare that we see customers with a maturity model with all of that, where it just cycles and works. And the reason for that is, talking about the stuck in hybrid, is we're never really stuck in hybrid because everything's always changing in some way, shape or form. So by the time you've got that real view of what's really going on now and you've solved that problem, everything's changed anyway.
Yeah, something else has come up.
Right.
Yeah, something else has come up. Yeah. So this is kind of traditional monitoring. Have we got monitoring of infrastructure? Yes. Do we respond if that? Have we automated this? Yes, you do those. I think the interesting piece is that the challenge for us over the last couple of years has been in the kind of application space and application monitoring. What have we got? How do we do it? Where are we going with our traditional CMDB, which is still probably a good thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, okay. And say, okay, well, we can actually, with some of the platforms that we're now using to support our service capability, you can put the CMDB in, but then you can enrich those components and you can add to those, and you can start to use it and say, okay, which have generated the higher problems? What's my likelihood? What's the predictability of getting to that point? And you can guide the teams can use that data to guide where they might start to look for things they want to do. We've been trying to understand more within our applications, which applications generate more problems and have more users or fewer users, and we're trying to kind of plot, have we got actually a bunch of applications which have got reasonably low numbers of users who are actually high callers to our desk,
Right.
and how many transactions do those applications process? So where are they? Very few people call me and say, you know what, that thing in SAP, it's terrible, and you get 0 calls, and we've got thousands of users.
To have gone full circle, which is very much John's first point, wasn't it, about looking at the business and finding out what is the pain point of the business, and then looking at that as a customer experience and driving a change as a result.
I guess you're looking for the pain, the things that have the biggest impact on people every day, and that creates those create real opportunities, I suppose.
The challenge, I think. So one of the things we're trying to leverage is some of the platforms that we've put in place to do monitoring, etc. Is we've now got 12-18 months of data, so how can we start using that proactively to start looking for these things? But the skills and the knowledge you need is a mix. You need people who've got that propensity to go and have a little look and push a few things and prod a few things. But you need some people with some experience of the landscape and everything else, and ideally people who've got some business experience as well. Who've got that experience of actually using things and trying to get processes done, and say, well, yeah, but it's only at the month end.
I mean, you need to have the right ways for this to lead through to whatever business case you might be making as well. So there are decisions to be made based on what you find. So if you performance test something and it's not fast enough, well, what other things are you going to do about it, and how are you going to make the case to clearly explain to the rest of your business around why they need to do it, or why does it really matter? So having a well-formed conversation around that at whatever level you have to within your organisation to make that seen as an important issue is absolutely crucial, because you can forget these things and you find people will be unhappy, but their voice doesn't seem to be getting through to the right level in the organisation to make a change. That's something which you have to think about, definitely.
It's such a vast question, and I just want to reflect on something that Joe and Nick said a bit earlier on. Going back to that sort of cloud computing and monitoring what our usage is. Obviously you've got the traditional sort of spin up, spin down, everything else. But I think for every organisation, and perhaps even more so from a not-for-profit perspective, just the simple processes now really, really need to be tight. Your starters and levers. You've got a license fee, per person. Now, if it takes a month for that information to trickle down to the person that's taking off that person's license, you're paying for that time. So I think, when we talk about monitoring, I think it's now down to the minutiae and making sure that processes are tight across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we've been on a journey with another one of our partners looking at kind of using automation tooling and stuff like that, and it ultimately comes to the position you can't have something that drops from mailbox to mailbox to mailbox. It's got to be connected with an automation tool or a platform that's going to execute that task. We talked to one of the other teams about the impact of automation. We could get a request for software, and broadly we were getting 80% in 5 days or whatever the KPI was, kind of thing. But the distribution curve was very flat, kind of thing. So to the extent that the two ends some were getting it phenomenally quick, some, and it was unpredictable. Now with automation, it's 98% within 8 minutes.
One thing which I guess we haven't talked about, which is mobility, and how the change in the working environment is forcing people to work in different places and giving them the opportunity to work in different ways. And I think that's also another factor in people working on trains to planes to different environments that they might find themselves in, and their expectation will be that they can work when they want to work, and then they can pretend the internet isn't working when they don't want to. But it's a very important change in the way people's expectations are.
A cultural change in the organisations.
Yeah.